Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And today I'm going to be indulging in total blasphemy, and that's the idea that the White Album should have been three albums, not two. And I know that's going to chafe on a lot of people, but I still imagine it because there was so much great material. And I have to laugh because George Martin, of course, said that he wasn't that fond of a lot of the material on the White Album and that it could have been a truly great one album set. But I still think the White Album is the greatest rock album in history, and that's just me. And a lot of it's because I discovered the Beatles. Well, I should say the Beatles changed my life in 1968 when the single "Hey Jude" Backwards Revolution came out. And before that, I'd heard the Beatles and I'd heard the Yardbirds and all these other people on my little transistor radio. I was 11 years old in 1968. But somehow when "Hey Jude" came out, it sounded so much more sophisticated than any of the rock I'd heard before, and it completely blew my mind. So I immediately sold all my comic books and my monster magazines, and I was hooked on music for life. And the first two albums I bought were the Beatles' White Album and the first Steppenwolf album. And the Beatles' White Album totally amazed me because I got the single and I was completely blown away by "Hey Jude" on one side and the Electric Revolution on the other. And once again, that was such an insane rocker to come out in 1968. And then I remember when the album came out in Christmas of '68, and they played the whole thing on the radio. And I sat there and listened to it, and I couldn't believe it was all the same band. And I was amazed that "Hey Jude" and "Revolution" weren't on the album. But I immediately went out and bought the album, and I was so attached to it that I literally carried it around with my little portable record player with a handle on it, a plastic little thing. And I took it with me everywhere I went. And one of my favorite memories is going over to my grandmother's house. And she was so interested in what I was interested in that she laid down in the bed next to me in the back kids' room and sat there and listened to the whole album with me. And I can't imagine what went through her mind when she heard Revolution #9 and Why Don't We Do It in the Road. But I'm one of those people that I don't hear any clunkers on the White Album. I think it's amazing from start to finish. I love all the variety. I love a lot of the songs that other people don't like, and I love the fact that Revolution #9 is on there. It just makes it such a incredible and adventurous record for me. And I know that ultimately there's probably no way you could improve on it, but sometimes I imagine it could have been even more stellar if it were a three record set. And a three record set was pretty unprecedented at that point. But let's remember 2 years later, George Harrison had so much material that he released a triple album, All Things Must Pass, on Apple. Granted, one record was a jam record, but a three record set wasn't out of the question. And I think that expanding the White Album and having it have been a third album at that time would have been even more amazing. They certainly had plenty of material. I mean, they had a ton of material going into those sessions, and I just love, especially when I hear deconstructions of all those tracks, and I hear all the stuff they put together to make all that material work on the White Album. It's truly stunning. But I got to thinking about it because I got the CD Deluxe Beatles White Album set, and I love it. And there's a lot of great bonus material on there. But I was kind of surprised with the things they left off, and then it got me starting to think about all the songs I love by the Beatles from the 1968 period that are so great. And I imagined, wow, what if they had made the White Album a three record set? And the stuff they left off is so stunning that there would be no denying that the White Album is the greatest rock album of all time. And the stuff they left off is just of stellar quality. And so I'm going to go through a track listing, 14 songs, so that's 7 per side of a third record of the White Album. And so, of course, we have "Hey Jude," the electric version of "Revolution," "Lady Madonna," "Hey Bulldog," "Inner Light," "Goodbye," "What's the New Mary Jane," the complete version, "Sour Milk Sea," "Not Guilty," "Child of Nature," "Junk," "All Things Must Pass," the Wildlife version of Across the Universe, and then Mean Mr. Mustard. And so all those tunes were recorded at the same time in 1968. Of course, Hey Jude and Revolution, Lady Madonna, Hey Bulldog released as singles. Inner Light was a B-side. And it wouldn't have been cool to have a little bit of Indian music on top of everything else on the White Album, particularly because it was after visiting India. And then Goodbye is one of my favorite acoustic ballads by Paul McCartney. He ended up giving it to Mary Hopkins, and she did a great version, but his version is incredible. And I'd love to have more wackiness on the album. Revolution number 9 is wonderful, but how about putting What's the New Mary Jane on there too to make the album totally whack? And then, of course, these great George Harrison tunes like Sour Milk Sea and Not Guilty and All Things Must Pass would have been a nice addition to the record and have more Harrison material. Of course, the Harrison material on White Album is so great, but cut him some slack on this album. And I don't care if Mother Nature's Son by Paul McCartney is already on the record. I think Child of Nature by John Lennon would have been a nice addition to have both those tunes on there. Wouldn't it be cool, like both their songs about little nature boys on the same album? And then the early version of Across the Universe is just such a wonderful song. Would have been a nice addition on the expanded White Album. And then Mean Mr. Mustard. I was surprised that they were doing it at that period. But that would have been a great standalone song on the White Album, and I love the snippet of it that shows up on Abbey Road, but the full version of that song is really cool, and it would be a great addition. So there it is. I'm crazy enough to suggest, I know a lot of people had a problem with the fact that the White Album was 2 records. I think it should have been fucking 3 records, and I just explained why. What an epic lineup of tunes um, on that 3rd record. And I'm still going to dream about it because that's the way I am, because I'm a vinyl junkie and a rock nerd and a total Beatles fanatic. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.